luxury Captain Jean could not afford. Along with a crew of more than 140 men, Captain Jean was charged with sailing west from the Isle of France, which is now known as Mauritius, to Madagascar to transport a load of beef and rice. The ship was expected back in the Isle of France in a few days, but Captain Jean had another stop to make first that only he knew about. Payment for the beef and rice would be a nice sum of money, but Captain Jean couldn't pass the opportunity to make a lot more. His plan was for the ship to sail past the Isle of France to Rodriguez Island. There, he dropped off a load of unplanned cargo before returning to the Isle of France with the supplies he was sent to bring back. Below deck, 160 men, 10 children from Malagasy descent, natives of Madagascar, were locked in the cargo hold to be sold as Captain Jean landed on Rodriguez Island. And the payday he was supposed to get was far from rice, so he was anxious to make it to the island before the Malagasy were forced on board. By 1761, they fetched a premium since the governor of the Isle of France was a man not to have left shipping. So long as the lucrative traffic, it was also a highly illegal one. And all these factors weighed heavily on Captain Jean's decision-making. While he tried to figure out where the ship was, the crew were busy acting before his plans, because in his mind, waiting for him was an option for the a tiny island directly in the ship's path. In fact, it wasn't so much the island that was called for, but the reef that surrounds it just below the surface. Captain Jean found out just how protected the island it was, and chopping waters in the Indian Ocean caused the ship to collide with the reef. Right away, this was a fatal blow to the ship. The hull was smashed open and water overtook it within minutes. Captain Jean and most of his crew abandoned ship and swam to the safety of the island, but even still, 18 men were swept out to the sea in the storm and drowned. Horrifyingly, many of the Malagasy cargo had no escape from the rushing water, and those who could get out did so through the hole the reef had created. When the ship sank, moments after the damage was done, it did so with almost half the Malagasy still trapped in the cargo hold. As the sun rose and in the wake of losing their ship, the magnitude of the predicament could finally be seen. More than 120 crews, between 60 and 80 Malagasy, made it safely onto land after the wreck. Unfortunately, they were stranded on an island that at the time was known as the Isle of Sand. And when the survivors could finally see where they were at the onset, they almost felt an immediate sense of dread. The Isle of Sand is about the worst place in the world to be stuck. First discovered by France in 1720, about 300 miles northwest of the Reunion Island and 280 miles east of Madagascar, so it's essentially in the middle of nowhere in the Indian Ocean. The island was once a volcano that eroded over millions of years, maybe even longer, and sea levels didn't leave much of it remaining above the water. On top of that, the island has a land area of a single square kilometer. Imagine an island the size of an average city block. But that's not all. Its highest point is 23 feet above sea level, so spotting any ships in the distance was out of the question. That's no problem on an island with trees, but the Isle of Sand was literal in name. In fact, outside of a few blades of grass and a couple of shrubs that weren't even knee-high, the island was completely devoid of vegetation. And because there are so many plants, animals aren't exactly plentiful either. There were fish in the water in the nearby reefs, but those same reefs make fishing difficult. Just about the only easily accessible food is seabirds that land on the island and the turtles that come up to shore, which is obviously barren by any standards. The island is also just off the equator and is classified as having a mild tropical climate, but with no trees or shade, temperatures on the island are anything but mild during most of the year. In fact, July and August are the only months where the average temperatures just barely dip below 80 Fahrenheit or 27 Celsius. For the rest of the year, the sun beats down and it's sweltering. Its size, lack of protection from elements also means that even the most comfortable things are windswept. Violent cyclones, tropical storms also pop up relentlessly during the summer months, which at the very least brings lots of rain. This, as you might imagine, is particularly important for anyone planning on spending any time on the island, since it has no source of fresh water, and you're increasingly erratic. The stress and pressure of smuggling Malagasy illegally and being lost in the Indian Ocean had already been more than enough to deal with. But now, not only would he not be getting that big payday he was looking forward to, but he also would be able to continue the highly illegal activity he was up to. If, or when he was rescued from the island, and that was a big if, Captain Jean would have to face the Isle of France governor. This stress eventually became too much for him, and he seemed to have a break from reality. Something in him just snapped, and from then on, he was never the same. With this break, his crew had no other choice but to relieve him of his command. Afterwards, First Lieutenant Barthélemy Castellet-Vernet took over and began a more basic survival effort. In the first little while after the strike, the crew gathered up anything from the ship that washed with the island, while others swam up to the wreck with the supplies still inside. Because of this, they managed to stockpile a considerable amount of wood, food, and various items that could come in handy. However, something that should have been the top priority was sourcing fresh water that completely overlooked. Since the crew had control of all the food and water, the Malagasy were not seen as equals. There was little reason for them to press and through the deal. This would result in the Malagasy dying from dehydration in the first few days. It was only after their deaths that the new captain were well without supply of water. And despite their shared circumstances, the social divide between the two groups remained in place. They shared the work side by side, necessary survival tasks like the construction of an oven for cooking and a forge for melting metal, but very little of the food and water sources were shared with the Malagasy. The Koreans placed a literal divide between them and the Malagasy by setting up a camp on the opposite end of the island. But the differences between them were no more evident than when Bartholomew ordered a ship being built with the wreckage of the Teal. Incredibly, the order wasn't just to build a raft of the scrap wood, it was to build a literal ship from scratch. When it was done, the Navy gave the new shipment name the Providence. Then, on September 22nd, almost 2 months after their stranding, the Providence was loaded up and departed to pack the sand. When it did, it left all of the surviving Malagasy behind, with only a promise to send a ship back to rescue them. After 4 days at sea, the Providence arrived back in Madagascar. During the journey, though, an illness spread throughout the ship and killed some of the crewmen, including Captain Jean. So with the commander responsible for everything now dead, Bartholomew was summoned to answer to the Isle of France governor when the crew returned home. The governor was furious and Bartholomew was lambasted, but despite this, he was still trying to convince the government to send a ship back to the sand. Unfortunately, the governor denied Bartholomew each time he asked. At the time, France was 7 years war with Britain for global dominance, and not a single ship could be spared. This meant that no help was coming from the Malagasy. In the first few months after the Providence left the island, the 60 or so Malagasy waited eagerly for a rescue ship that, unfortunately, unbeknownst to them, would never come. Eventually, everyone left behind had little choice but to make the inhospitable island home. Without many natural resources to work with, the Malagasy dug pits in the sand and they were fortified with coral rock to serve as shelters. Morbidly, it was common for the Malagasy at the time to bury their dead in buildings, which mausoleums we see in cemeteries today. They dig large holes and build walls from the bottom pits to a few feet above ground. The structure was then covered by a stone roof to complete a small, self-contained underground building intended to house the dead for eternity. This meant that the Malagasy castaways essentially lived inside what we consider to be graves. Even worse, the stranded survivors were often in the central highlands of Madagascar, far from the coastline that surrounds the country. Growing up, the captured in the ocean was different than what they were used to further inland, which was made all the more difficult by the dramatically few resources available to them. On top of that, one of the few sources of food that was available to them, which were the turtles, were considered taboo to Madagascar. But despite this, any reservations about them didn't last long as hunger